debate applied ethics.
Okay, so the position that I'm holding to is just essentially within the adopted Heideggerian existential phenomenological conceptual apparatus, the pro-choice orientation is just the philosophically preferred interpretation of parental human existence, and the justification for that is just that it just remains within the methodological, right, rather than the deductive. And the inquiry that I'm talking about just begins with the conditions under which parental human existence becomes intelligible, and not with like any antithetically like fixed biological or legal or moral classifications.
Okay, so I think you made a lot of assumptions there. Number one, you said pro-choice is preferred. Under which preparation? Because you said preferred is going to be methodological. It's going to be based off some sort of Peircean form of inquiry. Which Peircean form of inquiry? How does this lead to preparation? And how does this Peircean form of inquiry lead to a justified true belief? A lot of assumptions within that. You also mentioned some paradigm, and you talked way too fast, so I couldn't even get a hold of what you even said. And this is not really good optically, because if the judge can understand what you're saying, I definitely am not going to. So
So
again,
you
let's
asked
just slow
me
down.
preferred
Hold on, wait,
under
wait.
what?
I'm
So
saying
that
let's
doesn't
just slow
follow.
down
You're
because you
treating my
mentioned.
framework.
I'm not
Wait,
done.
no,
I'm not
that
done.
doesn't follow. That doesn't
I'm
follow.
saying it doesn't.
So
Well,
you're
I'm not
treating
done.
my framework
Listen,
as
you got
if.
to
Wait,
control your.
relax.
You have to
So you're
control
treating.
yourself. I wasn't done. Like I
Relax.
said,
So
you're
you're
saying the
treating
prefer.
my framework as
You
if it were
have to
trying
control.
to produce a
You have to
justified true
control
belief. That's
yourself.
already a burden. That's already
You
a
have to
blunder.
control yourself.
I didn't say
No
my
sir.
framework was trying to produce a
No,
justified true belief.
no
In
sir.
your
Again,
epistemic in your
it's
epistemic
not
sense, right?
epistemic.
I
It's
don't
not
grant
epistemic,
that
sir.
schema at all. So
Okay,
under
it's
what
not
theory of
epistemic,
justification
sir.
are you requiring JTB, and why should
Okay.
why should that govern my inquiry?
Okay.
You upgrade the
After
moderation?
this, yeah, I would love to do moderation talking sticks because he just kind of cut me off, and then he's kind of shadowboxing. He's finding the man in the mirror. Again, we're saying that this is based off a stage of inquiry. So saying it's a person form of inquiry. You're saying that it's going to be something methodological and not inquirious under some sort of intelligible framework. Again, catch the framework, and no one catch the framework because you're talking too fast and you're just mumbling under your breath. So what's the methodology here? Why is the methodology preferred? And what form of person inquiry are you using in order to get to a true belief? We're saying it's a true belief because you're still operating under a virtual true belief and a doxastic attitude. The doxastic attitude is you're saying you have this belief, and this belief is going to be justified from either some sort of seeming, some sort of theoretical virtue, or some other modal operative that leads to the belief in and of itself. You're just saying the belief is there without substantiating it. Because that's why preferential and that's why mythological is there. Deduce the etymology. Why are you using these things and why are you assuming them?
Yeah, mute him. So you're very, very fucking confused and you're retarded. I never said anything about. So you keep on asking me what form of inquiry gets me to the true belief. I don't grant that governing task of my framework is the production of JTB in the first place. That's your epistemic orientation, not mine. You're building your own conclusion into into question, right? My methodology is already explicit and I already stated it when I first gave you my first statement. The Heideggerian existential phenomenology, right? The inquiry begins with the conditions of intelligibility through which the phenomenon is disclosed. The governing standard is explanatory adequacy, not your account of epistemic justification. That's not me asserting a belief. That's me stating the criterion internal to the framework. Then you're saying that I'm operating with a dogmatic attitude, like because I have a belief. That's an equivocation between having a standpoint and adopting your theory of epistemic justification. Every framework has commitments. It does not follow it like it doesn't follow that every framework is committed to your account of justification, your account of justified true belief. That is the bridge there, and I need you to justify that and license that bridge. And you also keep on saying preferred. Like I've already told you what preferred means. Preferred is just relative to the adopted methodological criterion of explanatory adequacy. If you think another criterion should govern the conversation we're having, then I would like you to cash that out. Why should your criterion of justification displace mine? So honestly, and I'll ask you even further, so what is your theory of justification, and why should JTB govern this inquiry rather than explanatory adequacy? And what argument licenses the transition, right, we're having instead of merely just assuming it?
Am I unmuted? Yo, oh my gosh, this guy is LARPing like horribly. Number one, he's saying that he doesn't grant the form of justified true belief due to an indifference in epistemological grounds. We're not arguing based upon epistemology. All we're using is using the axiom of epistemology, the axiom of doxas, in order to formulate this. Specifically, the axiom I'm using is just going to be the KD45. Something that's distributed, something that's consistent, something that's positively introspective, something that's negatively introspective. So when we're using the KD45 in order to standardize these beliefs or to standardize these epistemic grounds, we're not arguing internal to the discourse what you're doing. Now you're already operating outside the domain of discourse because now we're talking about the meta framework here. We're talking about how these things are possible, how doxastic attitudes are possible, how epistemic grounds is possible, because we're talking about the axioms in which they operate under. So you saying I don't give a justification of justified true belief, well, I'm saying justification comes from the field, and you're trying to say that you're trying to justify this thing that's coming under the field, using the thing in question to justify the thing in question. Ban the question, number one. Also, number two, you still haven't understood what I'm saying when I mean there's going to be a preferred, and I'm me questioning the preferred statement there. You saying it remains methodological under a statement of a query. That's why exactly why we're saying it's under Persian, because you're saying it is a form of inquiry. That's Persian in nature. It's going to be inductive, abductive, or deductive. That's why I'm asking you for justified true belief, because it leads to some sort of inference that stems from a justification that leads to a belief. That's why I'm bringing up JTB. All right. You saying, oh, I didn't say that verbatim. It doesn't matter because that's what it etymologically reduces to. That's number two. Number three, you're saying the government standards are explanatory and they're going to be adequate. And all you're saying is you're stating the criterion internal to the framework. Not only have I already put into question that we're operating inside the domain of discourse and they didn't because they're going to be external and you're operating internal. You've already admitted that. Blunder number one. But now you're also saying there's going to be a symmetry between adopting and having. And you're saying that you're not going to be adopting anything, but you're going to be having it. However, after you say you're not going to be adopting anything, you're going to have it. Later on, you then said I need to prove some sort of license because you're adopting a methodological criteria. So I'll send something butter number two. You backtrack on the divorce statement there, and then you're actually marrying the two terms because you're confused on your own argument. You're just gibberating. And now obviously divorce blunder number three is going to come from because you're saying if I think there's another criterion, what's my theory of justification? All theories of justification are licensed under the KD45. If you're saying they're not licensed under the KD45, then you have no grounds for any epistemology, any decisive attitude, any seeming, or any theoretical virtue. So again, you're operating so far outside the domain of discourse, and you've already blundered so far. We could conclude right now. There's actually no point in continuing the debate.
So give him a little mute. I'm gonna respond, and we can conclude. Since he wants to conclude right now, we're just gonna do that, right? Yo, I'm not gonna lie. He just said whole lot of things I did not say, and he's genuinely the worst debater I've seen in my life. So first, to address all of this, none of the shit that he says follow. He's just restating his framework, and then he's acting like that binds me. That's what was in question. First of all, he says this. This is what you said. You said that this isn't an epistemological dispute. Then you immediately introduce KD45 to standardize the dosastic attitudes and epistemic grounds. So be precise. KD45 is a dosastic is a dosastic modal logic, right? So it formalizes properties of belief. It does not by itself, we would never say that it established a theory of philosophical justification, nor does it show why my methodology specifically has to be evaluated through its accessibility relation. You're confusing a formal system with a governing philosophical standard under Garson, you stupid fuck. So the modal system are framework relative. Idiots, you haven't shown why KD45 is privileged over my rival modal orientation. And secondly, we can even go further since you said so much fucking shit. You keep on saying that my position quote unquote reduces to JTB because it's an inquiry that doesn't actually cash out because an inquiry does not analytically entail JTB. You'd have to provide any evidence for that, you fucking idiots. You're equivocating between having an inquiry and adopting a specific epistemology of inquiry. The Heidegger thing that I was talking about, Heidegger's existential analytic is an inquiry into the conditions of intelligibility. It is not presented as the JTB theory. What are you talking about? Did you read any Kant philosophy? So you're just asserting that this is just some form of reduction, and you're not even defending the bridge. Can you actually defend that bridge? But we're already concluding. We're already going to conclude after this, anyways. So thirdly, you say that I'm operating quote unquote internally while you're external or something like that. The external relative to what? Can you cash that out? Says every meta framework is still a framework with its own commitments. So you're treating your quote unquote meta level as if it's just some form of fucking neutral shit. Are you confused? But that's exactly what I'm putting into question. I don't think you understand that. Under my account, there's no framework independent standpoint from from which you can get to fucking what's the word, legislate, right? Legislate like the rules of inquiry without argument. Dumb fuck. Like, what did you? What else did you say? Yeah. You said I'm being circular because I justify my methodological criterion by reference to the framework. Are you stupid? Every methodology begins from methodological commitments, right? So including your own right? So you appeal to KD45, you appeal to Christian inquiry, and whatever you mean by like justification comes from the field. Also, these things also presuppose commitments that require defense. So why is that any less framework relative than mine? You're not answering that. And finally, I think the last thing you said is that I've backtracked between adopting and having. You were talking about some bullshit there. Absolutely not. I distinguish having commitments, right, from your claim that I must adopt your epistemic standard, right? Those are different claims. Every conceptual apparatus has commitments. Obviously, we all can understand that. But it does not follow that those commitments are the ones you stipulated. So, what argument? Actually, yeah, we're done, gang. How do I tell you?
Oof.
We're
Well,
done, gang. You're some garbage.
am I unmuted?
Yeah.
All right, number one, I don't know why the fuck he brought up Heidegger. We're already talking about the KD45. That's already very, very confused. But I guess I'll just say my conclusion first, and then after that, we could just go from there because clearly he's very, very confused. Number one, he said that pro choice, the very start of the debate, is going to be preferred as it remains methodological, and there's not going to be an inquiry that's intelligible in the not pro choice scheme. So if you're saying there's not going to be an inquiry that's intelligible, and you're going to be inquiring this based on a methodological framework, that's where Persian comes in. All we're saying is that because you're bringing up inquiry, there's only three stages of inquiry in a Persian logic. Number one, you never attack that because the argument is going to have to be inductive, deductive, and abductive. Never specified whether it's one of those three. All you said is inquiry because there's some sort of inquiry there. That's already the one first point of vicious circularity. That point doesn't even follow. And that's within the premise one of his paradigm. That's blunder number one. Blunder number two, then he says, what form of inquiry are we even talking about? Again, after he mentions that, he still doesn't even answer the question. He just asked the question to himself and he's going to fight against the man in the mirror. He then says he doesn't grant a form of justification for JTB due to the fact there's going to be a difference in epistemological grounds because he's using a Heideggerian existential phenomenological standard that governs explanatory adequacy. Again, that's not me even like gibberating. That's what he said word for word. Go back in the recording. This guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. There's going to be an explanatory standard that's going to be adequate that leads to some form of inquiry, that leads to some sort of valence or some sort of truthhood or some sort of falsehood or just any truth tap statement. Then what you're saying is that it's still going to be adopting the KD45. That's why we brought it up. It's doxastic in nature as it leads to an epistemology, or that being the knowledge of nature. Number two, he also said there's going to be a symmetry breaker between adopting and having. You're saying that having is not going to be logically followed. Sorry about that. He's saying that having is not going to be logically followed because it committed to a need or a license of preparation. And he said he's going to have this preparation that's relative to his adopted methodological criteria. Again, he's using the thing in question, justify the thing in question two times in a row because that methodological criteria has already been questioned, given the fact that he hasn't even justified his Persian form. But we can apply the reductio there. Even if he didn't say, right? Even if he didn't blunder and said he actually specified his Persian form and he actually specified the phenomenological agency or adequacy in reference to explanatory value. It's still going to be adopting the KD45, something that he's not using any sort of positive or negative introspection there, due to the fact he's operating internal when the native discourse is not internal to the pro-choice schema, but it's external to pro-choice as it being governed by doxastic attitudes and epistemic grounds, specifically the doxastic attitudes that lead to an epistemic grounds, not the other way around. One number three. After that, you're saying there's no criterion of justification. What my theory of justification is, we're adopting the exact same theory of justification for the semantic reduction here.
Can you end the fucking wreck? This nigga's garbage. He needs to fucking kill himself. This shit was like really like a waste of my fucking time. Can you guys hear me? All right, let me respond. I'll give my conclusion and just end this fucking wreck, dog. Holy shit. Like, gang, the bridge is obviously unlicensed. Obviously, I would ask him, like, why should I even... He doesn't even give an argument for why I should grant every inquiry is exhausted by Peirce's inductive, deductive, or abductive classifications. So Heidegger's phenomenological inquiry is not introduced as a species of inferential reasonings in that sense. So you didn't read any Kant philosophy, you're an idiot. So listen, it's obviously, like I said earlier, it's an existential ontological investigation into the conditions of intelligibility, right? All you're doing is assuming your taxonomy is exhaustive. That's fucking retarded. So honestly, even further, he says, oh, that leads into truth or falsehood. so therefore we're just going to use KD45 or something like that. He's just conflating an inquiry that can result in claims with a doxastic modal logic that formalizes belief. Are you stupid? KD45 specifies obviously the structural properties of belief operators, but it does not establish that every methodology that we're talking about must be evaluated through KD45. Nor does it even provide a universal theory of philosophical justification. Under Garson, the modal systems there are framework relative. You haven't defended KD45, governs mind, at all. And he's accusing me of circularity again, the second time, right? Because I defended my methodological criterion by appealing to the framework. Every methodology begins with methodological commitments, like I said earlier, including your own, my guy. When you're appealing to Pierce, KD45, and then whatever, like you said, your account of epistemic grounds, that's likewise internal, right, to your own conceptual apparatus. So either all methodologies or methodologies are viciously circular, including yours, or your criticism is literally just fucking which starting, or is literally about which starting commitments are preferable. So if it's the latter of what I was saying, then I would like you to defend instead of just pretending like just some retard monkey just gibberating. It's just fucking embarrassing. Like, you literally just say, "Oh, operating internally." That's what he said verbatim. While you're external, external to what? I already asked you that question. You didn't answer it. There is no framework independent standpoint you've demonstrated. You've just labeled your own quote unquote meta framework external without arguing for its privilege. So your conclusion is just an assertion. You said, oh, he's adopting KD45. I deny that. So repeating that right there isn't an argument. So show the governing rule that forces every phenomenological methodology into KD45. What theorem, what consequence relation, or what argument licenses that translation or that transition translation? What argument even licenses that? All you really shown and all you really done is just rename your own framework as the meta framework, and then you're trying to say that mine must satisfy it, right? That's question begging. You haven't excluded the rival view that I've given you. Until you do that, your criterion and your criticism does not defeat my framework. I'm done debating this nigga, bro. I'm not responding. I'm gonna mute him because I'm not responding to this garbage nigga. Let's get this right out of this joint, bro. The fuck?
Wow,
I
that
ain't like
that was that was a
he fucking
conclusion.
dirt.
I'm not gonna lie. That guy responded to one of 4,000 burdens that he made. That's bad.